Welcome back to our channel, English with Ethan. Today's topic is not just important, it's life-changing. Let me ask you a question. If I told you there's one habit that could change your English, your mind, your future, would you do it? That habit is reading English. Not once a week, not when you feel bored, but every single day, with purpose, with focus, and with your whole heart. Because most learners think speaking is the goal, but they forget. Reading is the fuel. When you read in English, you grow silently. You build your vocabulary. You absorb grammar naturally. You think in full sentences. And slowly, without even noticing, you become fluent. In this video, I'll share 7 powerful lessons that will show you why reading English is not optional. It's essential. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Reading is the shortcut to speaking fluently. Let me start with a question. Why do some people speak English so easily, while others struggle for years, even after watching hundreds of videos? Is it because they're smarter, more talented, lucky? No. In most cases, it's because they developed one daily habit that changed everything. They read in English every single day. What most learners get wrong. Many learners focus only on speaking. They try to memorize phrases, they watch interviews, they even repeat after YouTube videos. That's good, but not enough. Because if your brain doesn't have the right input, your mouth won't produce the right output. In simple words, if your brain never sees English used correctly, your mouth can't speak it fluently. That's why reading is not just helpful. It's the shortcut to speaking clearly, confidently, and naturally. Why reading helps you speak better. Think of reading as silent listening. You're watching how English lives on the page, how real people express thoughts, how conversations are structured, how grammar is used, not as a rule, but as a rhythm. Let's break it down. When you read English, you naturally learn. 1. Word combinations. You don't just learn words, you learn how they work together. Take a break, not do a break. Catch a cold, not receive a cold. 2. Grammar without stress. No need to memorize rules like present perfect continuous. You'll see. She has been working all day. I've been waiting for hours. And your brain will start to recognize the pattern naturally. 3. Sentence flow and structure. You learn how real sentences begin, connect, and end. Honestly, I didn't expect that. Let me think about it. You know what I mean? 4. Tone and emotion. Reading stories and conversations helps you feel how words are used emotionally. He whispered. She shouted angrily. He smiled and said softly. This kind of learning is deep. It builds your internal language system. And when it's time to speak, your brain already has the structure ready. Real example. 2 learners. Let's say there are 2 people learning English. Person A watches videos, memorizes phrases, and practices speaking. Person B does the same, but also reads 10 minutes of English every day. After 3 months, Person A still struggles to find the right words. Person B starts speaking more smoothly. Their sentences sound natural. Their vocabulary grows automatically. Why? Because Person B's brain is seeing full sentences daily. Their mind is absorbing structure, grammar, and rhythm without pressure. That's the power of reading. Your mouth learns from your eyes. Let that sink in. We always think, to speak better, I need to move my mouth more. That's true, but here's a deeper truth. Your mouth improves when your eyes read more. Because the more you see correct English, the more your brain remembers it. And the more your brain remembers, the easier it becomes to say it out loud. Reading is like feeding your inner fluency machine. And every page adds power to your voice. Input to output. This is the golden rule. Your speaking is only as strong as your reading. If you read nothing, you'll speak nothing. If you read simple English, you'll speak simple English. If you read daily and consistently, you'll speak confidently and naturally. Reading gives you the building blocks. Speaking is how you use them. If you want to become a confident speaker, you must become a dedicated reader. Even 10 minutes a day can change your fluency forever. So from today, stop saying, "I don't have time to read," and start saying, "I'm building my fluency, one page at a time." Because when you read in English, you grow in silence. You gain new words. You understand the music of the language. You become the kind of person who doesn't just learn English. You start to live it. Lesson 2. Reading builds vocabulary without memorizing. Let me start with the truth no one tells you. You don't need to memorize 10,000 English words. You need to see those words in action, again and again, until they belong to you. That's exactly what reading does. Reading is the most natural, most powerful, and most stress-free way to grow your vocabulary. No flashcards, no lists, no pressure, just words coming to life. In real sentences, in real situations. If you've been trying to learn English vocabulary by force, stop. Let me show you a smarter way. Why most learners forget words. Have you ever studied a word and then forgot it the next day? You write, beneath star under. Predict os to guess in advance. Rush os to go quickly. You look at it, repeat it, say it. But when you try to speak, nothing comes out. Why? Because your brain never saw the word in action. You never saw it inside a sentence with real emotion, real meaning, real connection. So the word stayed in your memory for a moment, and then it disappeared. Why reading changes that completely. When you read, you don't just see a word. You see how it is used, when it is used, and why it is used. For example, let's say you don't know the word rush. You see this sentence while reading. She rushed into the room, out of breath, holding a piece of paper. Now you understand. Rush is about speed. It often happens in emergency or emotional situations. It usually means the person is moving quickly and with purpose. And guess what? You didn't have to memorize anything. Your brain understood it. Because it felt real. How the brain learns vocabulary from reading. Naturally. Here's what happens when you read. 1. You see the word inside a sentence. This gives you structure. Your brain connects it to something meaningful. 2. You see the word used more than once. You start to notice patterns. Repetition builds memory without stress. 3. You feel the word emotionally. Because reading often involves stories, situations, feelings. This emotional link makes the word unforgettable. You're not just remembering the word. You're understanding its character, its personality, its purpose. And that's when vocabulary becomes part of your soul, not just your mind. Real-life example. Let's grow your vocabulary right now. Let's say you read this sentence in a story. The room was silent. Suddenly the door creaked open. You stop and think, creaked? What does that mean? Then your brain visualizes the sound. That small, slow, creepy noise a door makes when it moves slowly. And just like that, you've learned a word. Not by force, but by experience. You will now remember creaked for life. That's the magic of reading. Reading creates word families in your mind. When you read regularly, you don't just learn one word. You learn connected words. Let's say you're reading a romantic story. You'll probably see words like blush, heartbeat, gaze, gentle, whisper, touch, nervous, affection. Now these words are not random. They are connected by one emotional theme: love. So your brain stores them together. Later, when you speak about feelings, your brain opens that folder, and the words come out naturally. Not one by one, but in clusters. Reading is the only practice that builds these word families in your brain. And that's what makes fluent people sound fluent. Reading teaches you timing and usage. Some words are common, some are formal, some are casual, some are emotional, some are only for writing. How do you know when to use what? Reading shows you. You learn. Guy is casual. Gentleman is polite. Sir is formal. Dude is friendly, informal. You don't learn this from vocabulary books. You learn it from reading conversations, novels, blogs, emails, messages, real content. What to do while reading. To grow vocabulary faster. 1. Don't stop every time you see a new word. Try to guess its meaning from the sentence. This builds your brain's ability to understand context. 2. Underline the word or highlight it. You can check the meaning later if you need, but don't lose your reading flow. 3. Read the same word in different stories or articles. This is how you strengthen memory. Through natural repetition. Use the new word in your next sentence. After reading, speak 1 or 2 lines using the new word. He was so tired, he collapsed on the couch. The wind creaked the old window. The faster you use a new word, the faster it becomes yours. You don't need to study vocabulary. You need to experience it. And reading gives you that experience. Again and again, until the word becomes part of your identity. Reading is not boring. It's the fastest way to make English words stick to your brain. It's how you become someone who doesn't just know words, but someone who can use them confidently in real life. So if you want to stop forgetting words, start reading, because every sentence you read is another brick in the foundation of your fluency. Lesson 3. Reading teaches grammar without studying rules. Let me begin with a question. Have you ever tried to memorize grammar rules, but still couldn't speak confidently? You studied. Subject plus verb plus object. Tenses, active voice, reported speech, prepositions, conditionals, and more. You passed grammar tests. You filled in the blanks correctly. But when it came time to speak, you froze. You forgot the rule. You hesitated. You lost your confidence. Why? Because your brain was trained to remember rules, but not to use them naturally. Now here's the truth that will change everything. You don't need to study grammar to speak English. You need to see grammar used correctly, again and again, through reading. What's the problem with grammar study? Grammar study is helpful, in small amounts. It helps you understand structure. But too many learners focus on grammar only. They try to speak by building sentences from formulas. Example. Okay, I want to say something in past tense. Verb plus ed. Oh no, is it regular or irregular? What's the past of go? Went? Goed? I don't know. This kind of speaking is slow, painful, and unnatural. You're thinking like a machine, not a human. Fluent people don't speak using grammar formulas in real time. They speak with feeling and flow, because their brain has already seen thousands of correct sentences. And that kind of brain training It doesn't come from grammar books. It comes from reading. Why reading is the best grammar teacher. When you read, you see grammar in real life. You don't study rules. You see patterns, and your brain starts to learn grammar without even trying. Let me show you how. Example 1. Learning present perfect from reading. You're reading a story and see this sentence. I have lived in this house for 10 years. You might not know the rule, but now you understand. Have lived. It started in the past and is still true now. You can say, I have studied English for 3 months. Or, she has worked here since 2021. You didn't need a teacher to explain it. Your brain saw the pattern. And the more you read, the more that pattern becomes automatic. Example 2. Learning question structures. You read, what do you usually eat for breakfast? You see? What? Question word. Do you? Helper verb plus subject. Eat? Main verb. Your brain notices. This is how questions are asked in English. You keep reading and see more. Where do they live? Why does she look tired? When do you wake up? You didn't memorize anything. You just observed the language in motion. And now, when you speak, those same patterns come out naturally. How your brain learns patterns, not rules. The human brain is not designed to memorize rules all the time. It learns through repetition, emotion, and meaning. Think of how a child learns to speak. They never study grammar. They hear, I want juice. I don't like this. Can I go outside? And after hearing these phrases 1,000 times, they start saying the same thing. Perfectly. Your brain works the same way, even as an adult. If you read 1,000 correct sentences, you will start speaking correct English, without needing to explain why. That's grammar by absorption, not memorization. And it's the most effective, natural method of learning. Real grammar patterns you can absorb through reading. Here are just a few things you can learn effortlessly by reading every day. How to form questions naturally. When to use present, past, and future tenses. How to use contractions. I'm, your, they'll, didn't. Where to put adjectives. A beautiful dress, a boring movie. How to use prepositions. In, on, at, to, for. How to make comparisons. Bigger than, more beautiful, less expensive. How to use conditionals. If I had time, I would help. You don't need rules for each of these. You just need to see them in action. And let your brain collect the patterns. That's what reading gives you. Not just knowledge, but language feel. Reading versus memorizing rules. What's better? Let's compare. Grammar study reading English. Memorize rules. See grammar in context. Learn structure, absorb sentence flow. Easy to forget, easy to remember. Boring repetition. Fun, emotional stories. Focused on theory. Focused on real usage. Helps in writing. Helps in speaking. You can now see. Reading doesn't replace grammar. It replaces the need to struggle with grammar. It makes grammar feel natural, not mechanical. What happens if you read for 15 minutes daily? Let's imagine. You read a short story or article for just 15 minutes a day. That's around 3 to 4 pages. Over time, your brain will start to notice sentence rhythm, grammar patterns, natural word order, proper use of tenses, punctuation, tone, and style. You will start feeling what sounds right and what sounds wrong. Example. He go to school. Feels wrong. He goes to school. Feels right. You don't need to say, third person singular takes S in present simple. You just know, because you've seen it hundreds of times in reading. That's called intuitive grammar. and fluent speakers use it every day. You don't need to fear grammar anymore. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to read more. Every story, every article, every paragraph. It's not just improving your reading speed, it's silently teaching you how to build perfect sentences. Because grammar was never meant to be memorized. It was meant to be felt. And the best way to feel it is through reading. So, from today, don't just learn grammar, live grammar. Through every word you read. Lesson 4. Reading trains you to think in English, not translate. Let me ask you something honest. Do you still translate every sentence in your head before you speak English? You think in your native language. Then you try to find English words. Then you worry if the grammar is right. And by the time you're ready to speak, the moment is gone. It's slow, it's stressful, it's painful, and worst of all, it keeps you stuck in fear. Now listen closely. If you want to speak English fluently, you must stop thinking in your own language. You must start thinking in English, like fluent speakers do. But here's the big question. How do I think in English if I'm not fluent yet? The answer is simple. Read English every single day. Yes, that's the secret. Reading is the most powerful way to train your brain to think directly in English, without translating, without struggling, without delay. Why thinking in your native language hurts fluency. Here's what happens when you think in your first language and try to speak in English. 1. You form the sentence in your language. 2. You try to translate it word by word. 3. You worry if the grammar is correct. 4. You panic because English is not the same. 5. You hesitate or stay silent. This habit destroys confidence because you're always afraid of sounding wrong and your mind is doing too much at the same time. Now imagine if English became your brain's first response. No translation, no delay, no fear. Just like how you think in your own language. You think and speak in English directly. That's possible. And reading is how you get there. Why reading builds English thinking naturally. When you read English daily, your brain starts to see common sentence structures, hear natural phrases in your mind, understand words in full context, feel the flow of English without translating, absorb language like a native child does. Through exposure, you're not just learning English, you're building an English brain. And slowly, English stops feeling like a foreign language. It starts to feel like a second voice. Real-life example. Reading builds mental sentence banks. Let's say you read this sentence in a short story. She turned around slowly and whispered, "It's okay, I'm here now." Now watch what happens in your brain. You feel the rhythm. She turned around slowly. You notice the phrase, "I'm here now." You understand the emotion without translation. Safety, comfort. The next time you need to speak in a situation like that, you don't need to build the sentence. You've already seen it. You've already felt it. Your brain will say, "Hey, I remember that phrase. I can use this sentence. I know how it works." That's how you start thinking in English. What happens when you read consistently? If you read even just 10 minutes a day, here's what happens. Your brain starts remembering full English patterns. You begin to hear English thoughts in your head. You stop depending on your first language. You respond faster in conversations. You gain inner fluency, not just outer confidence. And the best part? You don't need to try to think in English anymore. Your brain does it automatically because it's used to the rhythm. It's like learning to swim. At first, you try to remember every move, but once your body learns the pattern, you just swim. Reading gives your mind that same rhythm. How to train your brain to think in English through reading. Step 1. Choose simple material you enjoy. Don't read complex articles. Start with short stories, dialogues, or articles for learners. When you enjoy the content, your brain relaxes and absorbs more. Step 2. Read slowly and out loud, when possible. When you read out loud, you're thinking plus speaking plus hearing all at once. That's triple training for fluency. Step 3. Don't translate. Guess meaning through context. If you see a new word, don't stop immediately. Try to guess its meaning from the sentence. This helps your brain build confidence in thinking in English. Step 4. Visualize what you read. When you read, try to see the scene in your head. In English, don't just look at the words. Imagine the action, the emotion, the conversation. This activates your brain's language center and turns reading into mental fluency practice. The mental movie method. Try this exercise. 1. Read a short story in English. 2. Now close your eyes and retell the story in your mind. In English. 3. See the characters, hear the voices, describe the scenes. At first, it might feel hard, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. Your thoughts stop switching between languages. You begin to live inside English. And when you think in English, you speak in English. Replace translation with familiar phrases. Reading also helps you replace translations with real English phrases. For example, "Are you okay? Is everything all right? You look tired. What's wrong?" Because you've seen those lines again and again in reading. You didn't memorize them. You didn't translate. You simply read, absorbed, and began to think like a speaker. If you still translate in your head, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. It's just an old habit. But starting today, you can build a new habit. A habit that changes everything. Read English. Every single day. Let the language enter your mind. Let the rhythm become familiar. Let the words live in your thoughts, not just in books. Because fluency is not just speaking English. Fluency is when your mind speaks it first. And the only way to get there is to read your way into fluency. Lesson 5. Reading boosts your imagination, emotion, and confidence in English. Let's be honest. Sometimes learning English feels like a boring task. Grammar, vocabulary, tests, repetition. You lose motivation. You feel tired. You ask yourself, am I even getting better? That's because most learners forget one very important part of language. Emotion, imagination, story. You don't learn English just to pass exams. You don't learn English to sound robotic. You learn English to feel alive, to express yourself, to connect. And that's exactly what reading gives you. Reading is not just about seeing words. It's about feeling something deep. It's about seeing pictures in your mind. It's about feeling emotions in English. Joy, love, sadness, fear, excitement, surprise. When you read with emotion, you don't just become a better learner. You become a better speaker, a better thinker, a better communicator. And most of all, you become more confident in English. Why imagination is important for English fluency. Have you ever tried to say something in English, but your mind felt blank? You didn't know how to start. You forgot the words. You felt nervous and small. That's not a grammar problem. That's not a vocabulary problem. That's a confidence and creativity problem. Your brain didn't have a picture. It didn't have a story. It had nothing to say. But reading solves that problem. Because reading fills your mind with ideas, scenes, phrases, feelings, and pictures. And once your imagination becomes active in English, your confidence starts to grow. Fast. Real-life example. Feel the language. Don't just read it. Let's say you're reading this short paragraph. He stood in the rain, completely silent. His eyes were full of tears, but his face didn't move. Inside, his heart was breaking. Now stop. Don't just read the words. Feel them. See the man. Imagine the rain. Feel the sadness. Hear the silence. Now imagine you had to speak about this moment. Because you felt it in English. You can now express it in English. You might say, "It was such a sad moment. He didn't say anything, but I could feel his pain. I think he was heartbroken. The silence was louder than words. It made me feel emotional." See what happened? You didn't memorize this. You experienced the language, and that experience built your confidence. Why emotions help you remember English faster? The words you read with emotion stay in your heart. Think about this. You forget most of the grammar you studied, but you never forget a story that made you cry, or a line that made you smile, or a moment in a book that gave you goosebumps. That's because emotions are connected to memory. If something makes you feel something, your brain holds on to it. So when you read stories in English, when you laugh, cry, smile, or feel surprised, you are building emotional vocabulary. Words like shocked, grateful, embarrassed, thrilled, lonely, peaceful. These are not words from a textbook. These are words that live in real life. And reading gives you a safe space to learn them without pressure. Reading builds your inner voice. Have you ever heard your own thoughts in your head? Of course. Now imagine, you're reading English stories every day. You're seeing emotional moments. You're hearing English in your head. You're imagining characters speaking in English. Slowly, your inner voice changes. You start to think in English. Not because you forced yourself, but because reading gave you the rhythm, the emotion, the feeling. And once your inner voice becomes fluent, your spoken voice will follow. Reading helps you speak with confidence. Here's why. When you read daily, 1. You feel more connected to English because it becomes part of your day, your thoughts, your feelings. 2. You have something to talk about. You can say, "I read something interesting today." You feel proud. You feel knowledgeable. 3. You trust your language because the words you read yesterday are the words you'll speak tomorrow. 4. You speak with more expression. Not just "I am happy," but "I'm absolutely thrilled. This made my day." Reading teaches you how to feel your words, not just say them. How to read emotionally, so it builds confidence. 1. Choose stories, not textbooks. Stories are emotional. Textbooks are flat. Even simple English stories have powerful feelings. 2. Use your imagination while reading. See the people, places, colors, actions. Let your mind paint a picture. In English. 3. Pause and reflect. After each page, ask, "What happened? How would I describe this in my own words? How do I feel?" 4. Speak about it out loud. Talk to yourself. Retell the scene. Add your feelings. Example. She was really brave in that moment. I wouldn't have done the same. That part was so funny, I laughed out loud. Now you're not just reading, you're feeling the language, you're living in the story, and you're growing your confidence from the inside out. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You don't need big words to sound confident. You just need to connect with the language you're learning. And reading helps you do that beautifully. Because every story you read, every emotion you feel, every sentence you imagine in your head is building a stronger, braver version of you. So stop reading like a student. Start reading like a human being who wants to feel, grow, and express. Because when English enters your heart, fluency is not far behind. Lesson 6. Reading makes you smarter in English and in life. Let's begin with something real. Many people believe that English is just a subject. But the truth is, English is a tool for learning everything else. When you read English, you are not only improving your vocabulary or grammar, you are building your mind, you are building your memory, you are improving your focus, you are training your concentration, you are developing your critical thinking, you are learning how to understand the world. That's the hidden power of reading in English. It makes you smarter, not just in language, but in life. And the best part? You can start with just 1 page a day. And over time, that habit will change who you are. Why most learners stay stuck in English. Have you ever met someone who says, "I've been learning English for years, but I'm still not fluent. I know grammar and words, but I can't speak or think clearly. I feel like my English is going nowhere." That usually happens because they only study surface-level English, memorizing, copying, repeating. But reading activates deep-level English, the kind that helps you grow mentally, emotionally, and intellectually. Reading makes you curious. It teaches you how to think, not just what to say. And once you start growing your mind in English, speaking, understanding, and expressing yourself becomes natural. What reading really teaches you, beyond English. Let's break it down. When you read English every day, you are secretly building powerful life skills. 1. Focus and attention. In a world full of distractions, social media, messages, noise, stress, most people can't focus for more than 5 minutes. But when you read, your brain learns how to sit still, follow a story, and stay present. That focus helps you understand conversations better, follow instructions clearly, speak with more purpose, perform better in work or study, stay calm under pressure. Reading is a workout for your attention muscle, and the stronger it gets, the smarter you become. 2. Memory and recall. Every story has characters, events, emotions, places, and lessons. As you read, you remember what happened first, who said what, how the story changed, what it made you feel. This memory training carries over to everything. You remember vocabulary better. You speak more clearly. You think more deeply. You become more aware of patterns and logic. Reading is like feeding your brain with high-quality information, and that makes your mind sharper and faster. 3. Knowledge of the world. Through reading, you can visit other countries, learn about new cultures, understand human behavior, discover history, science, art, and ideas. Think beyond your environment. When you read English, you're not just improving your language, you're expanding your mind. You become the kind of person who can connect with anyone because your thoughts are bigger, your understanding is wider, and your words have depth. 4. Emotional intelligence. Stories are not just about facts, they're about people, feelings, struggles, growth, choices, mistakes, forgiveness. When you read, you step into someone else's shoes. You feel their pain, joy, love, fear. You learn how people react and why. You understand human behavior better. This helps you in real life. You listen better. You speak more kindly. You connect more deeply. You become more mature. Reading helps you grow not just as a learner, but as a human being. 5. Thinking in English, not just learning it. Most learners try to learn English like a subject, but the goal is to live inside the language. Reading helps you do that. When you read often, you think in English, you dream in English, you reflect in English, you even talk to yourself in English. It becomes a natural part of your brain. And that's how true fluency is born. Not just from grammar, but from growing your mind inside English. Real-life example. From basic learner to smart thinker. Let's say a person named Alex starts reading 15 minutes a day in English. At first, he reads simple stories. He doesn't understand every word, but he keeps going. After 1 month, his vocabulary has doubled. He's able to express thoughts more clearly. He remembers full sentences and uses them in daily life. After 3 months, he reads articles on psychology, motivation, and global issues. He starts thinking in English while walking or journaling. He feels smarter, more confident, more in control. After 6 months, his English sounds natural. He speaks with emotion and depth. He can explain big ideas clearly and fluently. All this because of reading. Not expensive courses, not magic formulas, just the daily habit of feeding his mind through English. How to read in a way that makes you smarter. Here's a simple plan. Step 1. Read topics that make you think. Pick topics like self-growth, biographies, psychology, business, or even fiction with a message. Example: The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Simple English plus deep ideas. Atomic Habits, if you're intermediate. Short articles on human behavior, goals, and emotions. Step 2. Ask questions while reading. Don't just read passively. Ask yourself, why did the character do that? What lesson is this teaching me? How can I apply this in my life? This activates your thinking skills and trains your mind in English. Step 3. Write or speak your thoughts after reading. This is the most powerful part. After you finish reading, say out loud or write, "Today I read a story about. I learned that. This reminded me of. I agree, disagree with this because." This is where reading turns into speaking power. The more you read, the more you grow. Your vocabulary will improve. Your sentences will become smoother. But more importantly, your mind will become stronger. You will become the person who thinks clearly, understands deeply, speaks wisely, learns fast, feels confident in every conversation. That is the kind of English speaker the world respects. Not someone who knows 100 rules, but someone who has something valuable to say. And that comes from one daily habit: reading. So the next time someone asks, "Why do you read so much in English?" Smile and say, "Because every time I read, I become more fluent, more confident, and more powerful. Not just in English, but in life." Lesson 7. Reading turns you into a natural English speaker, without even realizing it. Let's end this journey with a simple truth. You don't become fluent by force. You become fluent by exposure, by connection, and by repetition that feels natural. And there is one habit that quietly does all of that. Without pressure, without fear, and without stress. That habit is reading English every single day. Let me explain something powerful. When you read English daily, even for just 10 to 15 minutes, your brain is doing something amazing behind the scenes. It's collecting vocabulary. It's learning sentence patterns. It's understanding emotion, rhythm, and tone. It's developing a feel for the language. And most importantly, it's building a natural speaking system inside your brain that will activate when you need it the most, even when you think, I don't remember this word, or I didn't memorize this phrase. Your brain will surprise you. You will suddenly say things like, it's up to you. That makes sense. I've been thinking about it. Let me explain. Honestly, I'm not sure. Where did these come from? From the pages you read, from the moments you connected with a story, from the English your mind absorbed silently, naturally, without force. The invisible progress of daily reading. Most people give up on learning English because they don't see fast results. They want instant fluency. But they don't realize reading is not a sprint. It's not a test. It's a seed. And fluency is the tree. When you read daily, your brain stores hundreds of useful phrases. You begin to understand spoken English faster. You speak with better rhythm and flow. You stop thinking too hard. You start feeling the language. You become a natural speaker, not just a learner. And you won't even notice when it happens. One day, someone will ask you a question, and you'll just answer, confidently, clearly, without panic. That's invisible progress. It happens when you trust the process. And reading is the process that never fails. Real-life example. Sarah's story. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was a shy learner. She tried many methods, grammar books, flashcards, apps, but she was always afraid to speak. Then one day she made a promise to herself, I will read 10 minutes of English every day, no matter what. She chose simple English stories. She didn't understand everything, but she kept going. She laughed at some parts. She cried at others. She got curious. She felt alive. And slowly, her brain started to change. She began thinking in English. She started noticing new words in her head. She heard English in her thoughts. She started talking to herself in English without effort. After 3 months, her friend said, Wow, you sound so natural now. What course did you take? Sarah smiled and said, No course. I just read. Every single day. Reading builds real-world speaking skills. Here's what reading does that other methods don't. 1. You learn phrases in context. When you see a phrase in a story or article, you understand who said it, why they said it, what it means emotionally, how the conversation flows. Now, when you speak in real life, you don't guess. You remember, you recognize, you reuse. 2. You feel the rhythm of real English. Fluency is not just about knowing words. It's about how they sound together. What do you mean? It's been a long time. That sounds interesting. Let's figure it out. These phrases become part of your natural speech because your brain has already heard them in reading. 3. You build confidence without speaking. Here's the truth. Most people are too scared to speak at first, but reading gives you quiet daily practice. That builds mental fluency before you even open your mouth. So when you finally speak, you're not nervous, you're not empty, you're ready. How reading translates into speaking power, even if you're alone. Here's how to make reading improve your speaking. Step by step. Step 1. Read aloud, even if no one is listening. When you read aloud, your mouth learns the language, not just your brain. Step 2. Pause and repeat powerful lines. If a sentence feels emotional, strong, or natural, say it again. Example. She took a deep breath and said, I'm not afraid anymore. Repeat it like you're in a movie. Feel it. Speak it. Own it. Step 3. Act out short dialogues from stories. Turn your reading time into a mini performance. Play both characters. Add emotion. Use your hands, your face, your voice. This builds confidence, fluency, and fun. Step 4. After reading, talk about it in your own words. Say things like, "The story was about a woman who lost her job but didn't give up. I liked the part where he forgave his brother. It was powerful. This taught me that sometimes silence is stronger than words." Now, you're not just reading, you're thinking, expressing, and speaking in English, all at once. Fluency is not a race. It's a result of consistency. Let me remind you, you don't need perfect grammar to be fluent. You don't need a big vocabulary to sound smart. You don't need a speaking partner to speak naturally. What you really need is one book, one voice, one page a day, and a promise to yourself. I will show up. Because if you show up, day after day, page after page, the language will come to you. Fluency will find you. Confidence will grow inside you like light. If you forget everything else, remember this. Reading is the most powerful, private, and peaceful way to learn English. No one judges you. No one interrupts you. No one tells you to be perfect. You can read when you're sad. You can read when you're happy. You can read when you feel lost. And find your way again. So stop saying, "I don't have a partner. I can't go to class. I feel shy to speak." Start saying, "I'll read one page today. I'll read out loud today. I'll imagine the story. I'll speak my thoughts. I'll grow, one day at a time." And one day someone will ask you, "How did you become so fluent?" You'll smile and say, "I trained my mouth by training my mind. And I trained my mind by reading English every single day." If this video helped you, if it touched your heart, if it made English feel easier, clearer, and more beautiful, then don't keep this journey to yourself. Subscribe now and stay with us. Because every video we create is made with one goal: to make you fluent, fearless, and free in English. We're here for your growth. We believe in your voice. And we promise, the best is yet to come. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and never stop growing. God bless you on your English journey.